I think that, as an anime YouTuber, it's inevitable that people ask me for recommendations. Man talks about it, so he can help. Makes sense. But I must often admit I struggle to really give anything meaningful. Not because I haven't watched enough shows, but because most of them I watched long ago enough to not really remember how and if it appeals to certain people. But this also means that when I start something new that I enjoy, I'm always very happy to recommend it and gush about it to anyone that will listen. Anyway, totally unrelated, you should watch Tower of God. As someone who is always on the lookout for the next pew pew superpower adventure, I naturally gravitate towards shonen manga and anime. However, while there's a wealth of that sort of content over in Japan, there is another category of releases that might be able to scratch that itch. Not Japanese manga, but its Korean cousin, manhwa. While the Japanese catalog of manga and anime have generally become widely popular and distributed, manhwa has remained a bit more elusive to us Westerners. A step to change that was taken this year by Crunchyroll, who partnered up with Webtoon, a large online-based platform for manhwa, to distribute anime adaptations of certain Korean properties. One of these is Tower of God, written by SIU and animated by Telecom Animation Film. I had heard about the manhwa for a while now, and with the anime being 4 episodes in, decided to check out the adaptation. You've seen the title, you can guess that I liked it. So let's talk about why you should watch it too. The premise of Tog centers around Bam, a young boy who grew up underground and whose only companion was his caretaker Rachel, the latter of which wishes to escape from the depths and see the starry night sky. To achieve this, she leaves Bam behind, who, distraught at the loss of his companion and friend, immediately sets out to follow and find her. To do this, he travels up to where Rachel hopes to find the stars, the Tower. This is probably one of my favorite concepts introduced in the last while. The Tower is an all-encompassing, mysterious place in which everyone lives. It has seemingly no boundaries and stretches up far beyond comprehension. While the lower floors are populated, the elusive upper floors are only reachable through immense strength, conflict, and perseverance. Additionally, the top of the tower is said to grant those that reach it any wish, including allowing them to see the real sky, which in this world is a myth and commonly just replaced with illusions. What makes the tower such an interesting concept is just how little is actually known about it. Its guardians are bizarre and at times inconceivable in their motivations. The various areas and floors seem more like alternate dimensions than physical spaces, and the logic by which people are allowed to progress seems odd and ever-changing. The neat part about this, though, is that it never feels like these mysteries have been just thrown in haphazardly without their answers being crafted. Rather, those answers very clearly exist, but they are being tantalizingly kept from the viewer for the time being. However, instead of the series worrying about giving you all of that information immediately, Tower of God opts to keep things very simple. A weird rabbit, a boy who wants to pass a door, and a test. The first scene of the anime is so insanely simple that it reminded me a lot of more classical surrealist writing, where there are clearly otherworldly forces at play, but they are being ignored in favor of simplistic, isolated story beats. Or maybe it's just a fucking rabbit. In any case, I really like this approach. It's often been found that, with the switch to predominantly online consumption, viewers have started prioritizing urgency when choosing what to watch, meaning that often people want a story to lay out its general concepts and ideas and story outlines as soon as possible, so that they can make an informed decision whether or not to watch it or try something else. This does make some sense, considering how everything is easily available nowadays. You need to know whether or not you want to invest time in one thing, or if it's more sensible to go and look for something else. This tendency can, for example, be seen in one of my favorite shows of all time, My Hero Academia. In one episode, it spells out the basic premise, the world, the most relevant characters, and the general gist of the story almost immediately within the opening moments. It appeals to a sense of urgency, to our modern sensibilities. However, Tower of God takes a much more old-fashioned stab at beginning its series. It puts us into a weird, almost surreal situation and handles it with extreme simplicity, unconcerned with explaining the world beyond what is immediately relevant. What the Tower is, Bam's past, Rachel's role, They are all only hinted at and not elaborated until relevant. While Hira'aka basically strips down naked immediately and asks, "Do you like me?" Tower of God gives us very little to start with, and instead asks us to indulge in our curiosity and penetrate deeper into its story to find the answers we need. It is not an approach everyone will like and appreciate, but for me, the tantalizing idea of this mysterious world and its characters is a strong point of attraction. And that tantalization is channeled beautifully through our main character, Bam. Calling him a character might actually be a bit premature, however, since Bam is very much a bit of an oddity. He is very mild and rather simple, as he didn't really develop much of a personality due to his complete isolation, not to mention his partial amnesia. But the series does something pretty smart with this dangerously bland template. It makes the characters and world of the series define and characterize Bam, while it makes Bam pressure and pry for information about the world. Aside from small flashes, we get very little direct information on Bam as a person from him, but his actions and his behavior and how they contrast with those of the people around him, as well as how those people react to him, ends up slowly building his character from almost an outside perspective. In turn, Bam's wholehearted ignorance about this world gets him to ask questions and pursue answers, creating a simple yet effective and reasonable flow of information. It puts us into Bam's shoes, which is cool considering that his actual characterization is almost done through a third-person perspective, which is quite the contrast. Just like Bam wishes to climb the literal tower, the series asks us, the viewers, to embark on a journey to climb a metaphorical tower, one made up of questions with the answers at the very top. This creates a really satisfying loop, where the world informs Bam and Bam informs the world. And that's my favorite thing about Tower of God so far. It establishes and hints at a complex, multifaceted world and setting, and then populates that setting with multiple, simple, easy-to-grasp scenarios. These simple story beats then work as building blocks, slowly piling on and filling out the true scope and magnitude of the setting. It isn't an approach that will be appreciated by everyone, absolutely. It does ask a lot of you as the reader and viewer, and it essentially says, you want to know if it's worth looking into me? Well, you'll only know afterwards, which I can see being a bit of a turnoff. But as someone who really likes this type of style, I am really hooked and I can't wait where it goes next. I know I didn't really talk about any of the typical first impression things, like the series has a cool magic system, it has talking alligators, a really neat visual style that is simple enough to allow for smooth animation but detailed enough to not look ugly. But this is just what I care about, because in these first couple of episodes, this approach to both world building and character building just really struck me, because it's something that we don't really see as much these days anymore in series, because a lot of series want to become that immediate success, that immediate blow up, and for that you kind of need a very killer first episode that gives you a lot of information, whereas here the first episodes are very reserved and, as I explained before, take it very, very simple, which, as I said, I appreciate massively. In conclusion, watch Tog!